Welcome to Around the Blockchain. It's going to be a great episode. We're talking about the GDP numbers and what it means for Bitcoin. We're talking about Senator Warren and how she's in love with the SEC and Gary Gensler. And also, we're talking about Aptos. Did you catch that pump? Is it about a dump? We might look at some price action and see why exactly is it pumping. It's a fantastic episode with some fantastic guests. We have Firoz on the top right. You can catch him at decentralized_C. Also, in the bottom right, we have Rice TVx. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel. A lot of great stuff. Then also, first time on, at least with me hosting, it is Travis Wright coming in for the Bad Crypto Pod. Make sure you listen to that. It's really great episodes. And also, Jayson Casper in the Deep V. How are you doing today, Jayson?
Great, DZ. Honored to be wearing the Deep V on Around the Blockchain.
Man, with those clavicles, how could you not? It's going to be a great episode, like I said, and there's a lot of movement with the Bitcoin price action, but we maybe have finally calmed down with the volatility. And also, I'm going to be shooting some questions at some guests. If you like what they're saying, hit +1 in the chat. Whoever has the most points at the end, leave some parting thoughts. But Jayson, I'm looking at Bitcoin's level right now. We are above 23,000. I know we finally slowed down, but is it going to be flat, sideways, and boring as long as it was, say about a month ago? Because it just didn't move. It was weeks. I felt like the little meme where I wanted to poke it with the stick. Come on, do something. Can we expect that type of cooling down period, or is this maybe a little bit shorter this time?
I have a feeling, DZ, it's going to be a little bit shorter because after a move like the one that we've had over here, we put in a higher high in the weekly time frame. So officially, we've changed market structure. This is bullish market structure, objectively speaking. And you have to understand is that although if we're looking right now at I want to take a look at the 4-hour market cipher B right here, because one of two things can happen. Now, a lot of people are looking at this and saying that this looks very bearish because the money flow and the momentum are getting lower as the price is getting higher, very similar to this picture of Sam Bankman-Fried's man boobs. But the thing is, there is, especially when we enter into bullish market territory, and this is something that CryptoFace talks about a lot, sometimes that zero line will act actually as support for the money flow. And so basically what I'm looking at right now is we have two major areas of support that need to hold. And as long as we don't lose 21.7, we are very, very close to the next major resistance, which is actually the door to $30,000. And if we take a look at this bull flag that's forming right here on the chart, we can see the target is that $25,000 area. And if we can claim this, DZ, we have no volume until we get to $30,000. So I'm expecting some consolidation and maybe a slight pullback, but I am actually still expecting a little bit higher. I think that some shorts do need to get wrecked. Of course, anything can happen. And if we do lose the key support of like 21.8, I would see a move back down to like maybe the high 18s, which would still be bullish in my book because market structure is still bullish and market structure is king when it comes to determining, what is going to be happening with this PA.
Well, Jayson, we've kind of got out of the woodwork when it comes to, the amount of time that's required for, maybe we don't retest the bottom. And as we move these price targets higher and higher and higher, I'm starting to feel more confident that maybe we won't touch the 15s again. Is there any specific number you're looking at where, I don't want to say it's a sure thing, of course, but, at 42K, at what point does it become just extremely improbable?
That's a good question. And I think the only thing we can do is look at previous cycles. And what tends to happen is around this time, maybe like we're about 450 days away from the halving, we tend to get some kind of relief where we get a golden cross and market cipher B prints a big green dot on the monthly time frame. And that gives us some kind of relief. And for the past two cycles, the one in 2015, the one in 2018, we did get relief, and then we put in some kind of a double bottom. In 2015, we actually took the lows and put in a lower low and got like a swing failure pattern. In 2018, that bear market, when the Roni dump happened, we put in a higher low. So I'm expecting, it doesn't matter how high we get, even if we come up to 50K before the halving, which could happen, I would not be surprised if we give it all back, wreck all the shorts, wreck all the longs, and then let's get into the bull market,
Whoo, that'd be a sweet, sweet short to catch that and write that all the way down. All right, well, Farouz,
Oh yeah.
we're looking at some GDP data that just came in today, and we beat expectations. It was a quarter of growth, even higher than a lot. We're expected at 2.9% coming in at the fourth quarter of last year. And that is the sum of all goods and services produced in the US. But it also showed growth slowed slightly. It was 3.2 in Q3. Dow Jones expected 2.8, so it came in above that. Consumer spending came in 68% of GDP. It increased 2.1%. So we saw a lot of good data, maybe a slight blip with a lot of Boeing planes were being sent. You
Mm.
remove that from the data. It wasn't as good as normally would suggest there. But as these GDP numbers come in, they seemingly are kind of bullish. Has this recent quarter changed your prediction on whether or not we'll hit a recession in 2023?
No, for me, it hasn't. I mean, when GDP is growing, it generally indicates that obviously we're seeing that the economy is expanding, and so people have more money to spend. Obviously, which then potentially should lead into increased investor demand, etc. So all these things are quite positive. But I think the other thing that we also need to bear in mind is that usually the last quarter in most years does tend to be outperforming generally purely because we're kind of going into a bit of a festive season. There's people spending money generally. People have time off work, so there's obviously got nothing else better to do than to spend their money. So we see all of these, and I was kind of expecting that. What will be interesting is to see how this quarter plays out because I suspect this quarter will most likely give us negative growth, in all honesty. So that's what I would personally look for in terms of whether, to see whether we're actually going to be heading for, greener days. But I don't think so. I think this is what we're seeing here, a relief rally as well, which is very much due. Even if you have a look at cryptocurrency, we had, last year was pretty much down, 4 quarters of downward growth. And this was due. A relief rally was due to kind of bring some of that sentiment back. And I also do think that some of these numbers tend to be cherry picked as well at the same time.
Okay, I was going to follow up. Do you think some of this data is massage? And if we did see a negative quarter, do you think that maybe that second quarter, hey, all of a sudden we tweaked it where bread is, we increased bread, reduced
Yeah.
gasoline, add this, and coal's no longer on there. Is that a possibility to you?
It is because there are certain key metrics that are left off from the overall figures, right? When it comes to calculating these, and food is one of them because it's seen as a highly volatile asset. But at the same time, it's all well and good leaving it off, but then the everyday consumer like me and you, we notice that. We see that in the
Yeah.
cost of living. We see those prices of our eggs going up. Well, price of eggs going up for you guys. We've got a shortage of eggs, but that's a different story. But again, we see these prices going up and it affects our pockets as well. So we know that things have increased. We know that our consumer spending is actually increasing because we have to spend more in order to buy day-to-day goods. But if they're not factored into the overall GDP price, it's a bit misleading.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up they have measurements where they, maybe not include something. There's the core CPI, for instance. It does not include energy, does not include food. To your point, they say
Yep.
it's too volatile to measure that. Now, Rice, do you think that you can have an accurate index that leaves out some of these fundamental products that consumers buy? Or do you buy what they're saying where, well, the volatility kind of skews their numbers here? You're muted.
Yeah, I just realized that. Thank you. Thanks again for having me back on Around the Blockchain. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, as far as like massaging numbers, changing definitions to words, I mean, we're going to be seeing this manipulation taking place so that they can assure the public that everything is okay when not everything is okay. And I agree with everything that the previous guest just said. Um, we have a lot more pain that the Federal Reserve is going to bring upon us. I mean, they've been very vocal about that, and we have the FOMC meeting coming up on February 1st. I'm going to be interviewing Gareth Soloway that day. I'm expecting they're probably going to go in a little bit higher than most people are anticipating. A lot of people are anticipating 25 basis points, and that's kind of baked in. And I feel like they're going to be going a little bit higher. I think we're going for 50, in my opinion. We'll see what happens, but definitely the Federal Reserve is going to get those rates up. So right now, people are not paying attention. I don't feel specifically to GDP, PPI, CPI. They're paying attention to what the Federal Reserve is doing. Now, the Federal Reserve may be paying attention to this information, but I mean, like in the past, they've discontinued the M2 money supplies being factored in. So they're going to do everything that they can to manipulate the numbers to make everything appear to be better than they are. And I've said this quite often, and I don't mean to be like a doom bringer. I'm a realist, but things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And we have not even really felt like the pain that we're going to get, regardless of what the Federal Reserve says they're going to bring. We haven't felt the pain from all that money printing that's been going on the past few years. It's starting to catch up, and we're going to start feeling it worse and worse and worse. And as time goes on, people will realize what I'm saying. And that's why I think cryptocurrencies, and even for myself, precious metals are that lifeboat to be able to move forward and keep what I have and not lose purchasing power because of this way this debt-based system is designed to keep me a slave to the system.
All right. And shout out to all my Palladium buyers out there. Travis, Wright, we kind of have two narratives dictating where Bitcoin is going to head. And I want to ask you, what do you think is going to be more important and why? Is it going to be the GDP numbers, the CPI numbers, the macro environment numbers, or is the 4-year Bitcoin cycle still the most important thing?
That is an interesting sort of a thought when you think about where are we heading. And this to me seems like a much different 4-year cycle because the halving isn't going to create that much Bitcoin. It's not like back in the day when you go from 50 to 25. 25 is still a lot of Bitcoin. Or you go from 25 to 12 and a half, or 12 and a half to 6.25. We're going, what, 6.25 down to 3.125 or something. That's a small amount. And so I don't know. I kind of thought this last Bitcoin cycle we were going to keep trucking because there's more use cases for crypto now than ever before. That bull run that we had back in 2017, 2018, what could you really do with your crypto, right? You could buy some ICOs, right? But now there's so many use cases for crypto. So I thought this last one might be a little bit different. And I want to pose a question about your GDP because GDP can totally be manipulated, right? GDP is sort of it's a bullshit metric in my mind because this reminds me of a story, right? So there's these two dudes are walking down the road. One dude looks to the other one and goes, "Oh, look, there's some dog shit. Pick it up and eat it. I'll give you 20 grand." Dude's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay." So he eats it. And then the guy goes, "Hey, there's another piece. You eat it and I'll give you 20 grand." The guy's like, "Okay." And so then they're walking along and they're like, "Wait a second, we both have the same amount of money now." He goes, "No, but we got $40,000 worth of GDP." So I mean, it's sort of it's one of those crazy network, one of those crazy things when you look at it. What does it really mean? You see these ghost cities out in China, right? I mean, just because you're building stuff doesn't mean your economy's great.
Yeah. All right. That was great. I actually haven't heard that story before.
Touche.
And touche. And that story was brought
mean
to you
touche
by
it.
bcvault.com. Of
That
course,
was
I'm kidding.
touche.
But no, BC Vault, they are a sponsor of ours. You see them right there. We love BC Vault. That was a great story. I just want to wrap it all together because, hey, Vault, Throne, all kind of stands together. All right. Let's talk about
Love you, Travis.
Senator, yeah, that was great. Senator Warren praising your best friend. Of course, I'm talking about Gary Gensler, the vampire. She took to YouTube. I think it was about a 45-minute
That'd make
show
an
and
ugly
pledged
baby.
the notes you guys gave me. Basically, just showed her support for the SEC, showed her support, and was warning against the dangers of cryptocurrency. Of course, was uplifting the good job that Gary Gensler had done so far. Called crypto a scam and a fraud. Repeated some of the tired tropes that she said before. Of course, she pulled out of her back pocket the energy FUD and a couple other things. But some fun facts. We did a little digging. Our research team did a little digging. Who was she talking to? Who put on this whole event with Senator Warren? It was by the American Economic Liberties Project, and this is basically a hard left, hard progressive organization. Has members from ACLU and the Open Society Foundation. I don't know if there's any money changing hands. I'm sure they're probably a campaign donor, to her upcoming reelection. But she also took some shots at Michael Schonenheim, saying, these shady crypto players are lobbying hard in Washington and trying to erode the values that make America great. I don't know if I'm buying all that. Firoz, sure, crypto is getting a lot of heat, but I feel like Gary Gensler, in a weird way, deserves more heat. In your mind, I mean, who should we be putting under who should she be focusing her aim at? Is it crypto? Is it Coinbase and Brian Armstrong? Or is it Gary Gensler and all those FTX meetings?
So I personally think she should be aiming at Gary Gensler and all the FTX meetings that's been going on. I mean, what is the guy actually really doing for this space? Not a lot, right? He's trying to sit there, round up as many people as he can, get them under the sort of firing line, and try and paint a better picture for himself. But at the same time, he's not really providing much guidance in terms of regulation. What do we, well, I say we, but what do the crypto companies out there need to do in order to make sure that they're being compliant? And no one really knows. And sometimes it just becomes more potluck in terms of who he's going to aim the gun at next. And that's what we're seeing a lot of really at this point in time.
All right. Yeah, it's an interesting development. And Travis, I want to ask you, you got this podcast, Bad Crypto Pod. What is our job as, influencers or those who put out content, those who put out this crypto content? We need to call out these bad actors in the space. I mean, are we not doing a good enough job at pointing fingers, or is it our job to maybe do a little more education here? How can we sound the alarm bells that everything this lady is saying is antithetical to what you stand for, which is freedom, peer-to-peer, trustless systems?
Well, I think, at the top of the food chain, they really don't want peer to peer trustless systems because that doesn't allow them to control us like they want to, right? So, I think as, crypto influencers, which I don't really consider myself one, we like to educate and entertain folks along the way. And we don't really give we don't really give financial advice other than to do your own research and start figuring this stuff out. And when some of these places are starting to try to, these governments are trying to regulate it, all they're really doing is trying to move us towards their central bank digital currency. They don't want decentralized. So they're giving us just enough leash so we hang ourselves, it seems, right? And so you have Gensler, who is completely in the bag with FTX, right? So much so that Scam Bankman Fraud is literally helped writing the lobby and writing the bills for what regulation looks like in crypto. I mean, that's completely bogus. And so for folks, we have to realize that is that you have to look at everybody in that space with a stink eye, right? We come from the background. I know Rice Crypto and I, it's like we are literally looking at people and we're not trusting. Like we have to verify. We can trust people, but we have to verify that. And a lot of times what's happening is we have these big congressmen, these senators who want to regulate everything so that they can move everything more towards their centralized bank digital currency. So I think we do need to call them out on it. I think Gensler, he needs to go. Like this dude could not be in the bag with FTX like they were, and then still take this guy seriously because we can't. It's just impossible at this point.
Yeah. Now, impossible is also describes those red dots I saw in Jason's picture of Sam Bankman-Fried. I don't know if those world's lowest nipples or what was going on with those, but I want to ask
Those
you
were
about
sexy, though. Those were really nice.
I want to ask you about her. The SEC's approach, and they kind of have two different strategies here. Obviously, Sam Bankman-Fried, they don't seem to worry about him whatsoever, despite how low his areolas are. But then on the other end, they're going after Kim Kardashian, making a big hoopla, obviously because of her fame and notoriety, probably gets a lot of headlines. Why do you think they are going after the Kim K's of the world and not the Sam Bankman-Frieds?
I think most of this is just propaganda, honestly. And like Travis was saying, they want to bring attention to it for your average person who doesn't know anything about it, and they basically don't want people to pay attention to the things that actually matter, and they want people to pay attention to stupid, arbitrary things that don't matter at all, and kind of paint this picture that they want to paint about what cryptocurrency should be. And eventually, they're going to put it into the average person's mind that we do need intense regulations and we do need CBDCs and all these kinds of things because decentralization is bad, and they're not going to tell you, that Sam Bankman-Fried is on the inside. The biggest scammer in crypto right now is on the inside. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to be talking about your average Kim Kardashian. I feel like the average American cares more about Kim Kardashian than they do about pretty much everything else in life. So that's the route they're going to take.
All right. And how does that, just real quick, how does that make you feel, that the Kim K's are much more popular than, say, scientists, astronauts, and the like?
Oh, I love it. I mean, Kim Kardashian, man, she's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Her dad was a great lawyer, of course, Robert, he exonerated some notable figures. Rice TVx, let's just steal, man, let's give her a pass here. Let's give her a little break. If she were to quote unquote clean up crypto, where should she start? Where would you direct her to, allocate her resources?
All these scam projects out there. I mean, you see what's going on YouTube. I mean, YouTube is taking money to run
Mm,
fake accounts to be able to scam people out of their Bitcoin, impersonating people. I mean, these scams would be the first thing that if I was in those positions, I would go after. But I mean, it's not the case. And I agree with what the guests have said 100%. I mean, they're looking out for their own, and that's ultimately what they're going to be doing. And when it comes to Sam Bankman Fried, I mean, he was obviously doing some dirty work for some even dirtier people. So, how many politicians right now are actually screaming and pointing the finger and bringing attention to the SEC, to Gensler, and the corruption, aside from someone like Representative Emmer? He might be one of the only ones, if not the only one, that's out there speaking out against. And you see that I think it's like a 1/3 of the representatives in Congress and Senate have
mhm.
received money through SBF. I mean, it's sickening, man. I mean, all of this is obviously gearing us towards what Travis said. It's getting us in the direction of whether it's a CBDC in disguise being called a digital dollar, whether it's a stable coin, it's all programmable money that's going to put the governments and the central banks in a position to have even more control than they already do in the system. And it's going to get to a point where you're going to have to be a good citizen and listen, because they're going to attach social credit to these CBDCs. And the reason that the SEC is going after people like Kim Kardashian is because, one, they've got to look like they are actually trying to do their job, which they are not. Obviously, they're supposed to be protecting public interest, but it's also easy targets. It's an easy win for them to say that they are doing something to police this space to make it better. And then, while all the while, again, no politicians are saying, well, what was your involvement with Sam Bankman Fried? You had more meetings with FTX than any other cryptocurrency company. How could you have not seen this? What were the downfalls of the SEC with this? And we're not hearing about that corruption because what they do is look out for their own. People
Yeah.
just need to wake up.
Yeah, and you need to be very fearful of a social credit system. It will be used against you. It will be used against the populace. There is no other direction for that story to
And
head
with that
towards.
being said, real quick, BitBoy is, he's got his legislative side of things that he's doing, and he's trying to push through some better legislation that's positive for crypto. A CBDC is coming. There's nothing
Yes.
that we're going to be able to avoid that from happening. But what we can do is make our voices heard and communicate with our politicians to make sure that we're shaping that CBDC to be something that's going to be more beneficial for the people versus what they're trying to create and what we're seeing being utilized in countries like China.
Yeah, I agree. It is going to happen. The best we can do is just hope, in that conversation, some friendly people are there to maybe steer the direction. All right, let's talk a little Aptos. I want to lead with the price chart here. It has just been phenomenal lately. Of course, this launch late October. I think it's around October 19th. Largely flat for a long time. You can see it here. Actually dipped. It launched around $8.50, up to nine, almost $10, and then it was low. There's a lot of volatile action in the crypto markets. You see hitting $3 there. I believe this FTX collapse. Yeah, 11.9, $3.80 there. But now has been on quite the run, up $18, up to $18, up 2.5% on the week. Huge gains on the weekly. Huge gains since the beginning of the year. I think we are up 423% or so, up over 400% just from January 1st. And then even Binance, they don't do this often. They did a huge report on Aptos explaining to its users why they think it pumped. They have a lot of different reasons. Just the normal speak that you normally hear. They're working on the network fees and governance and validator staking are the utilities of the token, and they have meetups and conferences. But a lot of it seemed to come from their conference on, I think it was the 9th of this past month. Yeah, and the CEO and the founder, or the other founder, said huge stuff coming. And clearly the price just pumped out of nowhere. Jayson Casper, I know you have a really, really good trading group. I highly recommend you guys go check out his trading group. They're always sharing great calls, getting huge pumps. We love seeing it. Not gym pictures though, but huge pumps with the trades there. Did your trading group see this? Did anybody in your community see this? Were you telling people about this? And what the heck's going on?
We actually are the most jacked and buff crypto group in the world, just to put that out there.
Okay. All
So
right.
some of us are competitive bodybuilders, so I'm just throwing it out there, man. So we're all about the pump.
But not calves.
Personally,
Not calves. You leave that to Frankie, right?
not
It's
cat.
just
We leave
knees
that to
above. The
Frankie
quads,
Candles.
quads and higher. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, Yeah, I haven't personally been trading it. I honestly, I'm sure some people have. but it is a very interesting coin, the way that it's pumped so much like this. And I would just, when I look at a chart like this, DZ, and I see that it's only been listed since October, it's had like a over 400% pump. I would just, caution people, because especially, people get the FOMO, especially when a coin gets so much attention. And I would approach this and say, if I was going to, let's say, invest in this or even trade this, objectively speaking here, when it comes to like potentially shorting this coin, I don't really see a short trade here, just because I have no investment point that my plan is wrong. Like, there's no resistance to say if it comes above here, I'm wrong about my short idea. And if it comes to getting long or actually purchasing this thing, I would either wait until the price comes back down to some of these key zones, support resistance flips. Like, we've got a really nice zone around $9. But something else I would say, if this keeps pumping, there are ways to be able to take advantage of volatility in a price that pumps. And what we have to basically do is we have to wait for the price to form some kind of a sideways range like it is forming right now. And then what we do is we would basically want to mark out, if this is going to keep pumping, where are those levels where we would want to get interested in the market. And for me, I would be looking down to key like support resistance flips. Like, if we do get some kind of like FOMO wick down to maybe like the $15 area, or even juicier would be like the $12 area, that could be a good place to get long, especially if we start to see market cipher B looking like this, where like these woman's glutes, where she has a nice juicy left cheek and a skinny right cheek, and market cipher B is getting higher as the price is getting lower. We can last time we actually did form a range before the big breakout. We got this one big wick down right here and took out the lows, and market cipher B is looking very much so like the woman's glutes. I don't know if you can see it from your vantage point, but that's what I would wait
it's
for.
Your type of lady.
Okay. Great stuff there. Firoz, I want to talk to you more about their DM side. Those who don't know, just a little background. DM, of course, was the Facebook's algorithmically stable worldwide coin. Is a lot of mumbo jumbo there. It looked like it was going to be a basket of global currencies, and it would try to stabilize via that. And it had the two core developers. Of course, a lot of FUD from legislators. Hey, Zuck, get in front of Congress. How dare you have a crypto coin? They backed off of it. Well, then the team members, they went and they did their own thing, and it ends up being Aptos. Now, is that a fair assessment? And what are your thoughts of this having connections to Facebook?
Look, I think there's two things to mention here. The team from DM, actually, they split up in two, right? Some went to Aptos and some also went to Sui. Sui isn't quite released yet,
Yes.
but
Yes.
just bear that in mind for everybody, because I think if you're looking for a similar type of pump, I think you're going to see that also with Sui as well, because they kind of share the same founder story as such. So again, around that, you kind of have that whole positivity that, Facebook, Meta, big brand, which we see commonly within crypto, right? Big names behind a project do generally tend to pump it up. The other thing to bear in mind are a couple of things, right? I mean, the recent pump, where has it really come from? It hasn't. I mean, I think the only other thing was they had a piece passed for Pancake Swap. That was about it, right? So they're going to be doing on Pancake Swap a bit of that. And obviously, I would say Bitcoin at the moment, the rally that we're seeing in Bitcoin is also, providing a lot of encouragement for all the other altcoins to pump as well. So part of that is also coming from there. The other thing that I just want to point out here, and I did mention this back, I think somebody called my live stream back in November. I mentioned that the investor round, they had a few investor rounds. I think it was about 350 million in total funding, thereabouts. And we had some large names behind that already as well. We had like Paxos. We even had Binance behind that investor. We had our wonderful FTX guys out there. We had our disgrace Three Arrows Capital as well. All of these guys were in it. So when I'm not going to badmouth Binance, but again, the other guys that we sort of mentioned, they were in it, right? And when usually they're behind projects, you tend to see some sort of pump happening down the line. But one thing that I did point out was that if the fully diluted value of Aptos came anywhere near 4 billion, which to be honest it did, which is roughly around the same FTV value that Binance pretty much got in around, or just a bit under, you're going to see a pump, because again, these investors are going to want to see a sizable return on their investment. And actually, currently, if we ever look at it, they are up. Now, that's not to say that they're dumping all their coins, because again, their coins are vested over a number of years, as far as I'm aware. So I wouldn't expect to see a massive dump in the market, but again, there is clearly profit taking happening as well at the same time.
How hilarious would it be if it's staying so high because of bankruptcy court? They want to get rid of them, but they can't,
Exactly, and actually, the thing that you mentioned earlier was the Binance piece. The Binance piece really just focused on their tech. But in all honesty, if you kind of have a look at the blockchain now, I think they're only managing about 7 transactions per second. I think, which so it's not even fully out there, and I'm not even hearing about any major projects building on Aptos at the moment either. So again, it just feels very manipulated to me at the moment.
All right, Travis, I mean, what does it sound like to you? Because I'm looking at some of these numbers here. They only got 13% held by actual investors. Looks like 87% maybe being held back there. It is a L1, which is, kind of a hot trend right now. All the L1s, we've seen Optimism, Arbitrum, Near, a lot of things enjoying some pumps. Is it just kind of jumping off of this bandwagon? Or are you kind of agreeing like, hey, maybe there's a little bit more suspiciousness with this price action than maybe we could first lead to led to
Well,
believe here.
there's that one side of it, yeah, where 13% of it is held by investors. 87% of it is held by the company and their people. Like that's weird to me. Like people got so freaked out about XRP around that, like, oh look, they got all these billions in XRP in the vault. And so Aptos is doing the same thing. Now, when they came out and you know that they're connected with DM, you know there's the background story there, you go look at the website, they're saying all the right words, retail enterprise and all these complex challenges. And Aptos is going to solve that. They got all these great logos on the website, Under Armour, Coach, LL Bean, Michael Kors, all these great brands. And you see all their clients. It looks like they're doing some really, really big stuff. But you get under the cover and you look at it and you go, are they really? So, I think what Firoz just said, pay attention to what Sui's doing. When Sui comes out, that could potentially be a very big play if it runs in parallel to what Aptos is doing. And if you can get in there at the right time, that might not be a bad idea to kind of take a look at because there are opportunities there. DM goes away, Aptos and Sui gets created. What does that tell you? There's big money behind it. There was huge companies behind the Facebook crypto project before it was even called DM, right? And so who are those people and where are they now? And if they're working on these two projects, it tells me that they're going to try their hardest to do whatever they can do to make it work. Plus, they got Congress in a lot of ways in their back pocket. So, it looks to me like not a bad idea to pay attention to them. At least do your research in them to see, if it's for you or not.
Rice, I mean, do you think there's something there? Are they well connected enough? Are they talking to the right people where they can just, I don't want to say force adoption upon us, but whether through partnerships, whether through just, teaming up with big brands, whether through doing hardware gating, similar to bloatware on a phone, can they force this down our throat? Or, I mean, is it inevitable to you, or do you see this maybe flopping?
I mean, I believe the project is going to have success. I mean, they have obviously the momentum from what happened with DM and where they're at. I mean, that gives a lot of startup for this company because it's not starting from ground zero from scratch. They already have something to kind of go on. And there was a lot of attention put to what Facebook was trying to do. And they're obviously advertising themselves as the Solana killer. I mean, this is going to be the next Solana. This is the next centralized VC investor coin that people are going to be able to capitalize on. So I agree with everything the guest said. And Firoz, if I'm saying your name correctly, I'm sorry. What you said was completely on point. And then, I mean, we have a combination. This is almost like a perfect storm for this to be able to go up when you look at the combination of the fact that we have a Bitcoin rally going on. So it makes for the timing to be a lot more interesting. And it definitely helped with what was going on, because if this would have just came out of nowhere and this would have been the only coin pumping, it would have looked very suspicious. So they were probably looking for these opportunities to be able to take advantage. And anytime we have price runs in the next few months where we're seeing upward action, I would pay attention to these projects and see how they're performing, because they're obviously outperforming other cryptocurrencies. And I don't feel that there's anything technical that makes this project better than any other L1 solution that's out there trying to compete against Ethereum.
Yeah, and Firuz's point, I pulled up. I was looking at some of the smart contract language behind this. Aptos is built using Move. This claim to offer advantages solidity. But if you look here at Sui, also Move. So just Firuz's point, it's the same team, a lot of the same tech.
But this is centralized, man. This is another centralized L1 project. I mean, we've talked about the blockchain trilemma in the past: the scalability, scalability, security, and decentralization. And one of those ends up getting sacrificed so that
Yeah.
they can have faster throughput. And in this case, it's centralized. And what did I tell
Very.
everybody when Solana came out and Solana started getting more popularity? I said the same thing about Solana, and I will be saying the same thing about Aptos.
All right. Well, to some people, it seems like it's a feature, not a bug. At least those who don't care about centralization. Me personally, it's one of the main forefronts of what I look for in a coin. That's why I love Cardano. All right, but that is all we have time for today. I do want to say that section was brought to you by presend.io. Make sure you check out presend.io. But Jayson Casper ended up narrowly squeaking by. Jayson Casper, feel free. Leave us with some alpha. Leave us with some parting thoughts. Tell us how we can find out, learn more about how to navigate these trades.
Some deep V wisdom.
Wow, some deep V wisdom. Well, first of all, thank you, DZ, for having me. God bless everybody. Thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe to everybody on the panel. Man, some really good talks we had today. And, I have to say, Firoz, your accent really makes me want to use an accent as well. So I think for the rest of the night, I'm going to do this. And that's all I've got to say.
Hey, and you see
brother.
Peregrine on his shirt, also the fastest animal on planet Earth. And also one of the
Peregrine
fastest ways to
coffee
make some
roasters.
money. One of the fastest ways to make money.
Peregrine
Make sure
coffee
you're
roasters.
subbed to everybody's channel right here. Jason's, Firuz's, Rice's, Travis's, all putting out great content. That's all we got for today, Bit Squad. Until next time, DZ out.